Hi everyone, welcome to math. Today we're going to be looking at and investigating the angles of a triangle. So you are going to need in your packet, if you picked up your packet from school on Friday, this piece of paper is the first paper in the packet and it's labeled Triangle 1. I'm going to need you to get this paper and a pair of scissors, and I'd like for you to cut the triangle out. So pause the video if you need to go get this and get your triangle cut out. Okay, well, we're going to move on. So what we're going to do is we're going to investigate the angles of a triangle. And after you cut your triangle out, I'd like for you to, and I'm just going to hold up here and show you what I've done here. I've actually colored the angles different colors, the three angles that make up a triangle. You don't have to do that, but I thought for the video it would show up well. But I'd like for you to cut off, doesn't matter how, but cut off the end of one point on the triangle, leaving lots of room, lots of white space there. And then cut off the end, the other end, or another end, and then you're left with, one angle. And the reason we're doing this is because I want you to notice something, and I want us to put our pieces together of this triangle and see what happens, like put the angles together. So I'm just going to paste my triangle here on the board. So here's one angle, and then I'm going to take another angle, it doesn't matter which one, and I'm going to add it to the piece that's already been cut out, just like that, like it's like little pie pieces that are being fit together. And then I'm going to take the last one and add that in. And take a look at what has happened and what you see here. You should see very clearly that the angles, all three angles of this triangle, when you put them all together, they create a straight line. Hopefully you see that. And you can try that at home with your triangle as well. So now let's go back and let's remember what is the measurement of a straight line? Well, it's 180 degrees. So we have just demonstrated a property of the angles of triangles, and that property is that all the angles of a triangle, no matter what shape, all three angles, when you add up the measurements of all three of those angles, you get 180 degrees. So let me say that again. The sum of all the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. Now I've put here on the board various triangles, different shapes, A, B, and C, I've labeled them. And if we were in class, actually what I've done is I've tried my best to draw the triangles that you'll find on page 58 of your textbook. So actually right now, if you want to grab your textbook, pause the video and get that. But you'll see on page 58, number 1 says, measure and add up the angles in each triangle. Well, like I said, if we were in class, I would pass out the good old protractors. Remember working with those earlier this year to measure angles. And I would let you investigate and measure with a protractor each angle of each triangle. And then I would have you add those up, and you would be able to see that every time, in every case, the three angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. So, like I said, I don't have a large protractor that I can use here to demonstrate, but let's just say, for demonstration's sake, that I did measure these angles, and let's say this angle was about 90 degrees. I mean, that looks kind of like a 90-degree angle. And maybe this angle was 55 degrees, and this angle was 35 degrees. Well, when you add all of those angles up, 55 degrees plus 35 degrees plus 90 degrees, you get 180 degrees. And then for this triangle, suppose that, this angle were 70 degrees, this angle 42 degrees, this one was 68 degrees. Again, if you added up all of those angle measurements, you'd get a total of 180 degrees. So, like I said, we would have used the protractor and proven this, but for demonstration's sake, I'm just showing you that it doesn't matter what the size or the shape of the triangle is. There's a property, a mathematical property of all triangles. All the angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Now, using that property, we are going to take a look at some triangles with some unknown angles. And we are going to use this property, and we are going to solve for some unknown angles in the triangles on page 58. So I'm going to pause the video, erase my board, and get some of these triangles up that you see on page 58, and we're going to walk through how to solve for an unknown angle of a triangle. Okay, so we have just used our paper triangle to prove the first angle property that we're going to be investigating in this unit. And I've written it up here. The three angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Now, if you'll take out your textbook and turn to page 58, we're going to be using this property to solve for unknown angles in several different triangles of different shapes and sizes. So on page 58, we're going to start with number 2, and I've drawn it up here on the board. And it says, in triangle ABC, angle ABC is equal to 82 degrees. Angle BAC is equal to 54 degrees. Find angle BCA. There's your unknown angle. And remember, we talked when we first started studying angles back in December, we talked about the fact that angles can be marked in different ways. So this unknown angle is called angle BCA. Sometimes, like in number 3 here that we'll get to in a minute, an angle can just be marked with a small lowercase letter. But in this case, with this angle, the unknown angle is angle BCA. So how are we going to solve for that unknown angle? We're going to use this property, and we're going to write our steps out. So as I'm going through this with you, your only work today is to just have either a sheet of paper or a whiteboard, and as you watch this, follow along and write down the steps with me so that you can get the hang of how to actually solve this and show your work. So the first thing we're going to be writing is angle BCA equals. Okay, so I know that all three angles add up to 180 degrees. Therefore, the whole is 180 degrees, and I have 2 of the 3 parts. I can just subtract 2 of the parts from the whole to get the other missing part. And I'm going to go ahead and use order of operations, just like we did for the unknown angles of the lines. Okay, so my whole is 180 degrees. That's the sum total of all 3 angles. So 180 minus the sum of these 2 angles. And so I'll put that in parentheses, minus angle, or 82 degrees plus 54 degrees. That should give me my unknown angle. So when using order of operations, we know that we always complete what's in the parentheses first. So I'm going to go ahead and add 82 degrees plus 54 degrees, and I should get 136 degrees. Okay, and it's as simple as just subtracting 136 from 180, and my unknown angle is equal to 44 degrees. Now I'm going to always go back and ask myself, is this a reasonable answer? Well, I can tell by looking that that's an acute angle. It's less than 90 degrees, significantly less. So 44 degrees is a reasonable answer. So 44 plus 82 plus 54 would give me 180 degrees. All right, moving on to number 3. Number 3 in your textbook says, find the unknown angle marked in each triangle. So moving on to the first one here, you see a different shaped triangle, but the same property still applies. The sum of all 3 angles of any size triangle equals 180 degrees. So if I have 2 of those angles, I can easily find the third angle. And the name of that angle here is angle A. So we're going to write down angle A equals. Again, I'm going to just solve it in the same way that I solved the previous problem. I'm going to take, in fact, I'm going to make my work a little bit smaller because I have to fit it into a smaller space here. Angle A equals 180 degrees, that's your whole, minus the sum of two of the parts, minus 52 degrees plus 60 degrees. It obviously doesn't matter what order you put those in because addition is commutative. It doesn't matter the order of the numbers that you're adding. So you could have said 60 plus 52. Okay, but regardless, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add those two angles together inside the parentheses. And that's going to give us 180 degrees minus 112 degrees. That's the sum of those two angles. And when you perform that calculation, you should find that your answer is 68 degrees for this unknown angle A. And again, we go back and we ask ourselves, is this a reasonable answer? Yes, that's an acute angle. 68 degrees is a reasonable answer. Okay, the next triangle has unknown angle B. And if you look at this triangle, you'll notice that you can probably tell that that's an obtuse angle. It's greater than 90 degrees. But regardless, we're still using that same property. So how would we show our work? Again, we would say angle B is equal to 180 degrees minus the sum of these two not smaller, but, well, they are smaller, but minus the sum of the two known angles, 38 plus 40. And then I'm going to compute what's in the parentheses first. That's going to give me 180 degrees minus 78 degrees. So therefore, my total for this unknown angle is 102 degrees. Oops, 102. Going back, looking, making sure that my answer is reasonable. Yes, it's definitely greater than 90 degrees. All right, why don't you go ahead and pause the video and see if you can do this last one by yourself here. The question is, what is the measurement of unknown angle C? So how about pause it and see if you can write down your steps exactly in the way that I've been writing them down with you. Use order of operations, write down what the name of your unknown angle is, and then make sure that you take 180 and you subtract it from the total of the other two angles. Okay, when you do that, angle C is equal to 180 degrees minus 65 plus 72. That's what you should have gotten. And when you add those two together, 65 and 72, you get 137 degrees. And when you subtract 137 degrees from 180, you should get 43 degrees. That is a reasonable answer because angle C is obviously an acute angle. So this is how you use the property of triangles, that the three angles of a triangle add up to 180, to solve for unknown angles. So tomorrow, your homework is going to be to complete page 67 in your math workbook. And I'm going to hold up mine. I do this a lot in class, you know, to show you that I'd like for you to show your work just as we've done so here. You're going to be writing the name of the unknown angle and go ahead and use that order of operations step by step to get to your answer. So please don't have algorithms off to the side in your note or in your workbook. Rather, show your steps, because as we continue on in our investigation of triangles and solving for unknown angles, we're going to get a little bit more complicated. So we need to be careful that we show our work so that you can keep track of everything, and then ultimately that I can follow along as well. So that workbook page is your assignment for tomorrow. Take your time, show your work step by step, and we'll meet again later.